Welcome to the Poetry Fix on Radio Free Hillsdale 101.7 FM. I'm your host, Erika Kyba, bringing you your weekly fix of poetry from across time. In the last episode, we read an excerpt from The Dream of the Rood, which explicitly imagines Christ and his cross as medieval shield partners in battle. In today's episode, we depart more and more from the historical account of the Crucifixion as the poet transforms the scene into something out of a medieval epic. Christ's disciples are described as his thanes. In the medieval period, the thanes made up a ruling class that was just under the king. They had a sworn duty to fight for the king, and the king would reward them with land or with a share of treasure. It's important to understand that this wasn't a mercenary relationship, but a feudal one, charged with responsibility. Very often, a deep sense of loyalty would emerge from having fought countless battles alongside the king. You'll find this sentiment in much of the poetry, literature, and historical accounts of the period. So what is our poet doing when he looks back at the disciples, men of no aristocratic or military importance, and imagines them as thanes? He's essentially saying, these men are not so different from us. He's having his audience imagine the crucifixion in terms familiar to them, asking them to imagine the grief of the disciples in the way that a thane would grieve his fallen king. Suddenly, the crucifixion takes on more immediacy. It's not an abstract theological concept. It's not a far-off historical event. Our poet stands right at the foot of the cross, and he hears a story that is just as true for him as it was for the men that lived through it. With all that said, let's dive in. The Dream of the Rood, translated by Roy M. Liuzza. Shadows spread, gray under the clouds. All creation wept, mourned the king's fall, Christ on the cross. And yet from afar men came hastening to that noble one. I watched it all. I was all beset with sorrow, yet I sank into their hands, humbly, eagerly. There they took Almighty God, lifted him from his heavy torment. The warriors then left me standing, drenched in blood, all shot through with arrows. They laid him down, bone-weary, and stood by his body's head. They watched the Lord of Heaven there, who rested a while, weary from his mighty battle. They began to build a tomb for him in the sight of his slayer. They carved it from bright stone and set within the Lord of victories. They began to sing a dirge for him, wretched at evening when they wished to travel hence, weary from the glorious Lord. He rested there with little company. And as we stood there, weeping a long while, fixed in our station, the song ascended from those warriors. The corpse grew cold, the fair lifehouse. Then they began to fell us all to the earth, a terrible fate. They dug for us a deep pit. Yet the Lord's thanes, friends, found me there, adorned me with gold and silver. Now you can hear, my dear hero, that I have endured the work of evildoers, harsh sorrows. Now the time has come that far and wide they will honor me, men over the earth and all this glorious creation, and pray to this sign. On me the Son of God suffered for a time, and so, glorious now, I rise up under the heavens and am able to heal each of those who is in awe of me. Once I was made into the worst of torments, most hateful to all people, before I opened the true way of life for speech-bearers. You've been listening to The Poetry Fix with Erika Kyba. If you enjoyed this episode, consider following The Poetry Fix on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And if you have any poems you want to see in a future episode, email your suggestions to thepoetryfix@gmail.com. Join me next week and we'll be continuing our journey through The Dream of the Rood.